So, Warner Brothers doesn't seem to have a plan for DC. Let's see if we have one. So we get to do something we haven't done in a long time. There's all three of us here. Who are you again?
I don't really remember.
I know, none of us do.
You asked for us in the Q&A section, so...
Yes! You asked where they are. They're here. I dredged them out of the basement.
Where our children are remains to be answered.
That's
a little heat down there, bud.
It's look, you know what?
But he let us shower, and that's really nice.
That's your concern, it's not mine. I got Paul, I got Ryan. We're all together, and we are going to be talking about storylines from DC Comics that we think could be used to either be adapted straight into movies for the DCEU, or at least could be a starting point into something. We've all got multiple ideas to toss out on this, and I'm going to start with the guy that, and I'm terrified I'm about to say this, I'm going to let Paul set the tone. Paul, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely, and I'm going to...
What are you doing?
Obviously, it's been way too long since we did this. I've lost all sense of perspective.
Lobo. No.
Oh dear.
That aside, so if my first recommendation for DC, if I'm looking at the current market and I'm looking at what's going out and what's being successful, and I look at the current tone, sort of politically in the United States, but also in Hollywood, Batwoman would be I think the perfect choice for DC right now. If I was DC, I would actually just greenlight this without a director, without a script, without anyone, and I would just tell the public we're doing this. We're going to be moving ahead with the Batwoman story because we feel like we need more empowered women in roles that young women can look up to. And I think that the rebirth of Kate Kane, as she's been represented in the comics, was controversial, but provocative, and I think all in good ways. And I think she could make an incredible film. My only sort of reluctance in recommending this one is that she is a derivative character. And so there is sort of a certain amount of, she's not really standing on her own. She's just kind of this, putting on a costume that a man wore first. And, but I think that if you put that particular critique aside, I think that character would be a really solid choice for DC. I think it would be really popular. I think it would make them a ton of money on the side, but I think it would be an extension of an already proven property for Warner Brothers and DC, which is the Batworld.
First thought on that, what you said, and this isn't actually necessarily a negative, but I almost don't even think it's not a question of her being derivative. I think she's almost second generation derivative or twice removed, because I think when people think of female equivalent of Batman, most people's go-to is Batgirl.
Sure.
That was actually my first
Batgirl
thing.
is in the public consciousness. Everybody kind of knows her. So if you say Batwoman, there's like a little bit of confusion. It's like, is it just an older version of Barbara Gordon? Are we just sort of maturing her so we're not calling her girl, now she's a woman? And like, you do kind of have to make the distinction. And if you make a Batwoman before you've introduced Batgirl in whatever cohesive cinematic universe they're trying to make, if that is the intention, there might be a little bit of a disconnect. I don't think that is such a problem. I think trying to have Batgirl and Batwoman, this sounds awful, but it's almost like one too much. And
I agree only by technicality of the names. As far as the characters go, I think there's more than enough room for both of them, because they don't actually overlap a ton in terms of their approach or their characterization
that is true.
or their backgrounds.
I also don't think you need... I think that they can be distinct in the city of Gotham. Like, I don't think that you actually need Batgirl and Batwoman bumping shoulders, in much the way I don't think you need Batwoman and Nightwing sort of running into each other.
I would take one or both of them out of Gotham and just say that city is crowded enough with
no crime, as it turns out.
10 characters in the Batman universe.
One of the things I'm going to talk about would actually allow for use of that, but we'll come back to that. So, coming on Batwoman, first of all, I'm glad you actually made the distinction. In case anyone watching doesn't know, Batwoman is not Batgirl grown up. It is a completely different character with a different origin and with a different mentality. and she is a woman who, going with the more recent update of the character,
2006.
which actually I just lent, or I just gave back the volume that Ryan lent me. So she grew up in the military. She enrolled in the military. She was getting ready to graduate. This was still during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So when it came out that she was a lesbian, she had to quit. She's probably the most prominent lesbian character, since they kind of are. They're still waffling on really going all in on Wonder Woman. So I think Batwoman still counts as the most.
She's got Bat in her name, which gives her a certain
right.
degree of high profile status.
There's that, and the other thing is I actually, in regards to that relaunch, I really like how they dealt with the fact that she adopts Batman's mantle, because from her point of view, she views it much in the same way that the uniform a soldier puts on. You put it on because it's a call to arms, and you are taking this uniform to symbolize that you are fighting for the same cause.
Right.
Not because, like, I want to do what they did. Like, it is a symbolic gesture, and the way, and the moment that they have that has her decide, like, that is the cause I'm going to now take, is just a great moment. But I think she would be a very good pick. Unfortunately, I think you are right in terms of, Ryan, in terms of logistically figuring out timing for where to fit her in terms of the public not getting confused, gets wonky. But in isolation, yes, please, because if nothing else, I love her look.
Oh, yeah.
She looks amazing.
Yeah.
No, I like the idea. I'm worried, and I hear myself saying this, and it sounds terrible, and I don't even agree with it, but I bump into the idea of Batwoman, Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, Batman. This just gets crowded in the same family.
Yeah.
If we can sidestep that, if we can ignore that, if the movie is just good, if they just did it, then nobody cares.
Yeah,
right.
But, yeah.
So, Ryan, what you got for your first one?
I was thinking outside of the box, and I decided for my first one, I'm going to talk about a Batman movie.
Oh, wow. Really?
Really getting far afield, but you set the tone.
You know, Warner Brothers seems really reluctant to put Batman in things. So I don't know about this.
Now, they are working on The Batman, written and directed by Matt Reeves, or at least directed. There might be other screenwriters involved. This is their plan. They're championing this, and rumors are flying. Nobody really knows what this is. If it's going to be a one standalone movie, is it going to be separate from the continuity? From what I've heard, Warner Brothers really wants Matt Reeves to do a trilogy and basically give him the keys to the character for the next half a decade. Whether or not he wants to do that, I don't know.
Yeah.
So whatever. I think he'll make an interesting Batman movie, but right now I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in just another Batman movie. Between The Dark Knight and Lego Batman, I feel like I've gotten these two extremes. Between this character, I've seen so many flavors of this character that have tried to stretch out to 2.5-hour movies, and I'm worried that with Matt Reeves, they're just going to try and make it more ultra-realistic and more epic at the same time. They're going to go bigger and bigger. Warner Brothers won't be able to help themselves. They're just going to keep trying that. And I would rather them go smaller.
Okay. And what does smaller look like?
Well, for me, so small that you can actually put 3 stories into one movie. I want a Batman anthology movie.
Oh, I've heard this pitch from you before.
So, same cast, same actor plays Batman in 3 different stories. Same actors playing Alfred, Gordon, whoever you need. But 3 different stories, about 40 minutes in length, something about there. 3 different writers and director teams and everything. 3 different styles. So you can have one that is a proper whodunit mystery, and you can actually focus on the world's greatest detective. You can do one maybe jet-setting international James Bond type of Batman story. You can do one sort of gritty, horrific type of scary one, or one that is more lighthearted, a little bit sillier, more reflective of the Adam West. Yeah. You can have one like that almost treats Batman almost as like a side character or like an afterthought. It focuses on either a cop or a villain or something like that, and you get that perspective. But ultimately, 3 different stories, get 3 different auteur directors, have them do their stamp on the Batman mythos. This could be how you get somebody like a Martin Scorsese and said, if you were given basically the chance to do like a 1-hour TV episode, like without commercials, what would you do with this character? And you find some kind of thread to package them all together. You brand it Legends of the Dark Knight or Legends of Batman or something like that. And this could just be a vehicle. If this could be the franchise, you just get a series of these where you get different filmmakers coming in doing short Batman stories.
I think it's a tough sell, but here's the main thing that I like about it. At this point, there are so many different iterations of Batman, but Warner Brothers keeps putting ones up on the screen and insisting like, and this is the version of Batman. It's like, can we just accept there is no definitive the version of Batman? And doing an approach like that is a good way around that, where you're not trying to claim the definitive. You're allowing for, look, Batman's pretty malleable. Here's the buffet.
And I think if they trust the character, they trust the brand of Batman, which they always seem to be banking on that, then I think he's the one character where they can experiment with safely. And I think Lego Batman kind of testifies to that.
I think that, so I love that idea, but I think the part of me that loves that idea is the adult in me that wants to see these different versions of the character. I think it would be, well, not impossible, but I think in terms of the branding, I think the toys would probably be trickier for that particular version. And the only reason I bring that up is that is a big piece.
I don't think Warner Brothers has been making these with toys in mind lately, to be completely blunt. I mean, if they were...
Not since the Nolan Batmans took over, really.
If they were making these with kids in mind, first of all, they wouldn't have released Batman v Superman even in the state it was in, and they definitely would not have allowed an R-rated cut to be made available on Blu-ray.
Yeah, so maybe I'm looking at an older version of Warner Brothers.
I think there's more. I think the market is probably more towards older toy collectors than it is the kids who play with them.
I love this idea though, and I think there's a lot. I also think it's particularly well poised for things like streaming and for just sort of releasing online in general, because we have shorter attention spans. I think if you sort of think about
what were you talking about?
like binge-worthy TV, like we want the sort of little chunks, the little bite-sized pieces, and that would fit.
Yeah, you get alternate cuts that they're just in different orders or something like that.
Yeah.
Plus, everybody who thinks the market is oversaturated with Batman, here's 3 Batman stories.
Take that. Well, okay. So
Batcat.
So I didn't know when I was going to bring this one up, but you know what? Let's clear this whole thing off the deck. Let me put my Batman idea out there so that we can then move off of Batman. So this would be something...
I love it.
Yes!
So I have some notes.
Batman. Yes! So this would be something to do actually after you've had a number of your independent films, like, say, a Batwoman, a Batgirl, a Nightwing, whatever.
Okay.
But this would be your crossover story to bring them all together.
Okay.
And that would be No Man's Land. Which I think actually is not only a way to bring all the heroes together, but it will allow Warner Brothers to do what they also want to do, but can't find a way to do it properly, which is to load it up with villains as well.
Yeah.
Because there was rumor for a while that, and this was before Ben Affleck wasn't going to direct the Batman anymore, that they were going to take heavy influence from the Arkham Asylum video game, which of course is probably best known for the fact that it's set in Arkham Asylum, which means you can just load every villain into it.
Right.
But it's also pretty contrived. It works in the game because you then get to be Batman, so you forgive the narrative contrivance. But for a film, that's really contrived. But when you have this, there's been an earthquake, and Gotham is now this broken up city that's now been completely sectioned off because it's such a mess, and the criminals are just dividing territory all over the place. It gives the heroes a reason to both interact but also have their own thing going on, as you know, maybe Nightwing's trying to deal with Scarecrow over here, and Batwoman is trying to handle what Clayface is up to, and you've got all that, and you can have the integration. Now the only reluctance I have on this is there are so many pieces and so many moving pieces. You might have to do it as 2 parts, which I don't love having to say because I don't like breaking a story into 2 parts, but I think you might have to in this case.
I think my first thought was that would be a good way to do a multi-part Batman like movie story or something like that. And I think breaking the movie up into separate parts, it really depends on if there's a natural break for it.
Yeah.
My problem, like with the last 2 Harry Potter movies that adapted the 7th book, was that I didn't feel like there was a natural break. And just like the narrative didn't support that. So you had the 7th movie, which told part of a story without an ending, and then the 8th movie was just like a 2-hour-long climax of the previous story. And it felt very disjointed, and I didn't like those experiences watching those movies separately. But I think this works, and I think though as you're crafting the story, you can find a finite place to build the ending of the first. If we decide to do this as a two-part, you can the way the Lord of the Rings movies did. They felt like there was a natural breaking point.
Well, and there's an easy enough way to do it. If you put, like I say, you'll have a ton of villains, but if you put a primary, here's the guy we're dealing with now in the first movie, you deal with him, but then also set up at the end, but these other three guys join forces, now we deal with that. So you've dealt with the immediate, now you deal with the bigger threat. It's like Star Wars. We blew up the Death Star, but now we have to defeat the Empire.
Right.
Yep. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think it gives you a lot of latitude for bringing in a lot of these sort of disparate characters. I also think it gives you an opportunity to redraw Gotham if you want it, which is, you can sort of relaunch some characters. You can put different people into costumes. You can play.
You can seed so much. You can seed Renee Montoya if you want to set her up to take over as the Question later. I mean,
you can also, and I think it would help to have some established Batman properties out there before you do this.
Yeah.
But I think you can also do that as a way of introducing. That could be the catalyst that invents. That's where Kane says we do need somebody to stand up.
Exactly.
That's when she decides to put on the costume and be Batwoman or something like that. Or the same thing for a Batgirl or somebody else from his rogue, Azrael or something like that. That could also be the origin story for one of the people in the Batman family of characters.
Actually, Azrael would be interesting to throw in there to have, especially if you've already done, and I wouldn't want to do him in his own movie, but if you've already done a Batgirl and a Batwoman and things like that, people who took up the mantle and did it right, have somebody who is inspired and then just does it wrong.
Right.
And he becomes a wild card in this other mess they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So, Paul, back to you.
All right. So, one of the properties I am most excited about.
Batman, please be Batman.
Actually, he's in it, so you can't avoid him. But it's Super Sons. And I want this so badly I can taste it. And the premise behind this, if you're not familiar with the comics, is basically that Damian Wayne and John Kent are little boys.
These being the children of Batman and Superman, respectively.
Right. And they are buddies, and they fight crime together. And also Crypto, the super dog, is there. And
it's Streaky the Super Cat there.
Now, and there's...
Forget it, I'm walking away.
And the thing is that there's a couple different approaches you could take with this. The first would be animated, which I think would fit it pretty well. But it would have to be big. It would have to be like Pixar level sort of quality.
Big Hero 6, sort of.
Exactly.
To give it kind of a superhero context.
Exactly. And or The Incredibles, sort of feel to it. And I think it could be fantastic and fun and over the top, and having them solve crimes, like, it could be like Cat Up a Tree type of stuff, right? But the cat is actually this evil, mastermind scientist and wants them up the tree, and the tree's actually a spaceship trap, and who knows? And so, like, but it could be...
The Ultra Humanite in a cat's body. Okay. I'm there. I love this. Okay.
Right? And so, and DC needs fun so badly. Like, it needs to have a good time, and these characters would be nothing but that. The idea of these boys out there and, like, fighting crime, doing it earnestly, making mistakes. I think if you can get the dichotomy that we want from Batman and Superman, which is like, you have Damian Wayne, who's like an assassin, and you have
kind of a dick,
right? And you have this young man who's been raised by, Lois and Superman, and like, he's literally a Boy Scout, and like the two of them like arguing with like how to deal with problems. And then getting in over their head and having, like, Bruce or Clark or both of them having to show up and fix or take care of, like, whatever it is the boys have made worse by trying to save the day. Anyway.
Well, that's your act 2, but then for whatever reason, they can't come and deal with the thing, and they actually have to come together and do it right in act 3.
And so... Anyway, I would buy those tickets now, and I want the poster. So I'm just gonna say,
why do I have a feeling you're gonna commission that the next time you're at a con?
Super Sons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
Okay, my next one, and I wasn't going to go with it, but again, thematically, it sort of piggybacks off that one because it's a group of younger heroes, but I didn't go with the Teen Titans. I'm actually going with the Legion of Superheroes.
Okay.
And for anybody watching this, if you're not really familiar, the Legion of Superheroes, they've appeared in cartoons and animation. They've bumped up in Smallville and now Supergirl, I believe.
Yep.
But the premise is basically they're from the 30th century, now I guess the 31st century, 1,000 years in the future. Basically, whenever you're reading or whatever the comics,
1,000 years from
1,000 years
now.
hence, you've got a united federation of planets, not unlike Star Trek, but a lot more combative, sort of. But all these different planets, they all have different representatives, and essentially there's just a group of younger people. They could be younger kids or teenagers or early 20s. They kind of always kind of grow up and everything. But it's essentially young people, and from different planets, they all have different powers that are unique to their home planet, or some of them are mutants or something like that. But they come together and they are inspired by the legend of Superboy. Or you could say Superman, it doesn't matter. Like, originally it's Superboy. And they've used Superboy as like a mythology figure, like the way we look at stories about Hercules, and,
Yeah.
classical mythology. Except because they have a time travel device, because it's 1,000 years in the future, they can actually go back and meet Superboy and meet their idol, and he can go to the future and interact with them. Now, for the premises of this, you can have Superboy or Superman be a character in the story, but you don't need to. Essentially, all you need to know, and this is why I think it might be a little bit easier than the Teen Titans, because the Teen Titans kind of have to brush up against their older figures, whether they're the sidekicks or they're just the next generation. They're kind of living in the shadow of the Justice League or something like that. So you kind of have to acknowledge that presence. With the Legion, there's enough of a remove that you just have to know a long, long time ago there was Superman or Superboy, and maybe a Justice League, but you maybe don't have to mention them. But you've got, and I think it plays to hard space sci-fi like Star Trek, or sillier sci-fi like Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's essentially a younger group of heroes, so you can play into things like the Maze Runner trilogy or Divergent, like things like that. So those type of properties, those type of fan bases, those type of actors, and like get those kids and kind of bring them in something that is unique, self-contained. All you need to know is that there is a Superboy from this universe, but you're not handcuffed to what the Justice League does or something like that.
Now, my first question is, have you gone so far in this concept as to figure out your roster? Because when you talk the Legion, there's a lot of options.
There's 50 people. I mean, this is a huge thing. They're like X-Men big. Not quite, but but big. I would, at least at the start, I would tend to focus on the 3 kids who originated, which is Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, and Saturn Girl.
Okay.
But also, I would be tempted to throw Brainiac 5 in there too.
I think you need to put
It's fun to have Brainiac 5 when you think about Brainiac as one of Superman's primary villains, and here's a descendant of him who's like the smartest guy in this world, who's a good guy, and ends up becoming Supergirl's boyfriend.
So, Arm Fall Off Boy, yay, nay.
I would love Arm Fall Off Boy. At least then throw an Easter egg into him. Just have some like some montage fight or whatever where you get the tryouts and this guy takes his arm off. He's like, "This is my power. I can take my arm off."
But all you need is them going down a hallway and like there's a door.
Yeah.
There's a door into a room and over it says tryout. So you just see this guy.
Right, and like the whole thing, you play into like aspects of like teenage revolution and everything, and like get My Chemical Romance to do a song with these guys or whatever. And just have a scene, arm fall off, just pulls his arm off and starts beating the bad guy. But you would, I don't know if you really know this property, you would love it. You love my favorite character. He's one of the Legion of Substitute heroes. His name is Chlorophyll Kid. His power is to speed up or slow down the growth of plants. He can't control them like a poison ivy type thing.
Right.
He can just make them grow really fast
Or not.
or really slow if you need that. So
It's
Yeah.
a lot of them
I want to
have
write 10 years of Chlorophyll Kid.
A lot of them have crazy specific powers.
he goes on missions and he just brings a pocket full of seeds. He just throws them down.
Redwood.
And the bad guy's just thrown up in the air by a redwood. So something along those lines. I would think before I went to Teen Titans, I would try something like the Legion of Superheroes, because it gives you a sci-fi Star Trek superhero base that's a little bit Harry Potter, a little bit Divergent, things like that. But it also has a finger in the realm of the DC superheroes.
Since we've now done a couple of light ones in a row, I'm gonna take it upon myself to go dark.
Okay.
And this would be a later. This would be. I mean, obviously, it centers on one character most specifically, but this
Batman?
No,
No.
But this would be big enough to probably need to be a Justice League story.
Okay.
Blackest Night, which is a Green Lantern story, and it incorporates because we knew about the Green Lanterns and the Green Lantern power rings. The Green Lanterns are basically space cops. For a while, we knew about the yellow rings, which feed on fear, and that's the polar opposite. But then we find out there is a whole spectrum of rings, including the Black Lanterns, that basically just harness death. and you have basically the rise of the Black Lanterns and then trying to stop that. And there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously, it's a very large-scale story. Clearly. And it is one that definitely justifies including whoever they have introduced in the movies up to that point. If they keep the twist that Black Lantern rings can not only resurrect dead characters as Black Lanterns, i.e. evil zombie versions of themselves, but can also take over people who have died and come back to life, well, you know what? Warner Brothers can finally have that evil Superman they kept hinting at and never got to do. They can have him for a hot minute.
No,
and
they had him.
Well, but they can have him for a hot minute and then be done with it and finally feel like they got it out of their system and leave it the hell alone. And and the thing is, I don't feel that it is necessary to stick to a lot of the specifics of this story. I don't think you need to introduce specifically the concept of Necron. I don't think you need to get into the way the parallax entity and all these things actually work. I think you boil it down to the basics. The spectrum of colors, the colors of the rings correspond to different emotions. I do think you keep who most of the rings tie themselves to. Like, it is perfect that the orange Avarice ring goes to Lex Luthor. It is perfect that the yellow Fear ring goes to Scarecrow. I think you do keep some of those, but like, we don't need the specifics of Necron. We don't need the specifics of which superheroes got resurrected as Black Lanterns. But I think the concept is big enough to justify that big a movie, but is also malleable enough as a broad stroke to tweak it so that we don't have to literally retell the story, the narrative that the comic book told.
So we're getting a Green Lantern Corps movie.
Yes.
I don't think you can introduce the Lantern Corps in a Blackest Night film. I think you have to lay that groundwork in a separate movie.
Yeah, probably.
That was going to be my question: is what prerequisites do we need
you need to do a Green Lantern movie first.
Yep. And you need a Green Lantern people like. But beyond that, so here's my fear with this, is that while DC is getting this project off the ground, Marvel is going to just do a Marvel Zombies movie, and it is going to be fun and ridiculous and over the top, and we're going to see Thor hold on, just popping the heads of like 6,000 zombies in a row with his hammer, right? And I'm not saying that Marvel Zombies is a better property, but what I am saying is that Marvel's going to do a better job with this, and then DC is going to look at it and go, and then I think it's going to get killed in pre-production before it even gets off the ground. So that's my thought.
Here's what I will say. If Marvel's makes a Marvel zombie movie first, yes, you are right. But, however, I have said this before and I will say it again. I want Kevin Feige to walk through the offices of the junior executives working at Marvel. If there is anyone with a stack of Marvel Zombies trays on his desk, fire him! Right now! I do not want Marvel Zombies in a movie, ever!
Yeah, I don't.
Ever!
It's gonna make them so much money.
Ever! No! And it's fine if you like Marvel Zombies. Fine. Keep them out of the movies. No!
I like Blackest Night. I like that story a lot. It's steeped in history with characters and lore that so far, to date, has not been established by the DC movie universe. So, either you need to wait 5 or 6 years before you do Blackest Night, and you need to lay a lot of groundwork, or you have to tweak the story a lot. And it sounds like you're okay with tweaking the story a lot to make it accessible for this. And I'm fine. If the movie's good, it's good. You'll have to make a lot of changes, and I'm fine with that.
I would encourage that anyway, and actually that's the case for all three that I'm proposing. It was the case for No Man's Land 2. It's like, these are premises I want to see movies of. I don't want to see a literal translation of the narrative that was already told off this premise. I want them to take what's the starting concept, great, let's figure out our version of that, because, I don't mean to keep comparing them to Marvel, but Marvel does this very correctly. That's why Civil War works. They didn't literally retell the story of Civil War, because the story of Civil War from the comics actually isn't that good, but they took the starting premise and made a really good movie out of it.
that DC needs a consistent presence from the Lanterns in the DCU or the DC cinematic universe.
Whatever the heck they're gonna call it.
Right.
They can't even decide what they call it.
And I think that has been lacking. I think that Hal Jordan or whatever Green Lantern is that you gravitate to has been sorely missed in that universe, and that whole sort of space opera kind of space cop portion of it that he brings, that the Lanterns bring. I think that if DC can start to do that, I think you can then have room for telling those big stories.
All right,
I love Blackest Night.
Fair enough. I mean, this one is one that would have to be sat on for a little while. But let's...
Yep.
Paul, you got a last one for us?
I've got a couple others, but
Okay.
I've got more than one more.
Okay, all right. So I've only got one more, so I'm,
right.
I'm kind of... No. We'll go however long we go.
All right, so this one is a little bit of a reach.
Oh, dear.
All right.
From you? No!
All right. So, once upon a time, Hal Jordan, speaking of the Green Lanterns, had an enemy called Igneous Man. Igneous Man's powers basically are he can get super hot and he can deal with radiation, but his backstory is that he's this alien who's a bounty hunter who really, really loves his job. Anyway, I really like this guy. Here's what I would do with him, is I would use him as this bounty hunter for hire, who basically gets hired by someone like an Amanda Waller, who sort of, I know that we're leaning towards Suicide Squad sort of things, but basically she pulls him out and gives him these impossible sort of people to capture. And for him, the goal is not... he just sort of loves the game of catching these people, of catching these sort of impossible targets, right? And so it would be sort of like a... sort of a spy, kind of detective, action sort of thing, and maybe his powers aren't always present all the time. But at the end of... Anyway, so I have this sort of story worked out with him where he ends up catching whoever it is, and he has an insanely high cost, like to get him to do stuff that's like $50 million or something like that. And when he gets his payment, it gets backed up to his hideout or his cave where he steeps in his radioactive stew. And he sets all the money on fire.
Do you remember the first word you said when this episode began?
I don't.
First word. Lobo. He's a bounty hunter.
He's a bounty, honey.
And he's not a figment of your dream that this Igneous Man is. That you just made up. This is a dream you had. You're describing a Lobo movie. Just make a damn Lobo movie.
Hell.
Okay, next one I'm thinking of. I still, every once in a blue moon, I hear talk about Justice League Dark.
Yeah.
And this idea of bringing all of these DC horror characters together for a team book. And every time I hear about it, I hate the idea.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do the same thing they did with Justice League, which is they're going to rush something and it's going to be a mess. Yeah. The thing is, I like all of these characters. And instead of throwing them together on one team when they don't have to be a team because they're not team players, instead of mixing them, give them legitimate solo movies first. I want to see a new Swamp Thing movie. Yeah, he has had 2 movies that were not good. But the sophistication of telling these type of movies has increased. The budgets and the special effects have increased. You could do a wonderful Swamp Thing movie today.
Sure.
Yes.
I also think you could do Dead Man, which I still think would be a fodder for a wonderful TV series more than a movie, because it's basically supernatural Quantum Leap. But you could do Etrigan the Demon or something like that. You could do some of these other horror characters or something. But I would just don't try to throw all of these together in some big cluster as Justice League Dark. Don't brand it that way, because I seriously, I don't think Warner Brothers likes the name Justice League right now. They might think that's a toxic brand. But just do a Swamp Thing movie. You can reintroduce John Constantine that way. You can have it Matt Ryan, or you can cast him somebody brand new. But he could be sort of a Samuel L. Jackson type of character, the Nick Fury, who starts, you pepper through all of these different supernatural horror movie plots. And maybe, if you want to, and there's no urgency to do this, if you want to, you can bring them all together as a team or an ensemble thing. You throw the
So you're saying that we could put them all together in a team and make a bigger movie that would make tons of money.
And let's do it this year before New Year.
Like some kind of Suicide Squad. No, so, yeah, I'm going to argue with you on one point. Because I agree, if you're going to go in this direction, give Swamp Thing his own movie, because either version of Swamp Thing you do, whether you do the original version or Alan Moore's reinvention of him, either one totally supports its own movie. I will grant you know some of these characters better than I do, but I kind of wonder, do you get... unless you're doing an origin movie, which I think we're all kind of sick of, is there a movie to be told with the Demon, with Deadman, with even Zatanna? And like you say, they're not team players. I agree with that, but I also think that, like, I saw the Justice League Dark animated film, which was one of the better things they've done lately. And if you establish a baseline for how these characters work, they're not team players, but they do bounce off each other really well when you throw them in a team dynamic. And while I would still say do Swamp Thing first and even use that to see Constantine, I would argue I'm not sure most of these other characters hold a movie on their own.
So here's what and maybe this is the distinction. They don't necessarily have to be superhero movies. They don't have to have that flavor. I think you can do The Spectre as a crime horror movie. As a murder detective who comes back with these supernatural ghostly powers and exacts horrible revenge. That could be an R-rated, just terrifying, like crime thriller type of movie.
Well, I mean, it's Freddy Krueger is the good guy.
Yeah,
is
essentially, yeah. Don't make them necessarily superhero movies.
Okay.
Make them horror movies, because that's where these characters were established. I do think you could do the Demon Etrigan as a fantasy adventure thing about this cursed guy who says this rhyme and becomes a demon character and is sort of a Hulk who's a little bit more manageable and a little bit easier to work with. Things like that. And
you say that, but like he's a Hulk who can come up with who can scheme.
Right,
is that actually more manageable? Maybe you think it is.
Right, maybe the Hulk with Loki's personality.
Yeah. Which, honestly, okay, fine. You put it that way. I'll buy that ticket. Yeah.
So, and then after you've done the legwork, do a couple of these, and if the story presents itself, you can bring them together and do it like in a way that where Constantine, and where it's actually like the thing about the Avengers or about the Justice League is essentially you've got people who all have the same agenda, and they're all coming together to fight crime or to save the day from the thing about all of these different horror characters is they don't all want the same thing.
Yeah.
So you need a kind of a very special, particular kind of crisis to bring them together. For Constantine to maybe need to lie to them and manipulate them in order to get them to work together to achieve some ends. And some of them might have to be like forced against their will. You might have to put a branding spell to get them to cooperate, and that leads to more conflict and more strife. So that, anyway, yeah. So
all right. So this is the last one that I have. If you guys have more, we can do some more. But oh god, Paul's got ideas. I saw that in his eye. Okay, but this is the last one that I'm going to throw.
But mine are good.
So I'm going to say it, and I'd be very curious to see, especially Ryan's face on this. Identity Crisis. Now, like what I said with the other two I proposed, I'm not saying do the plot again. I'm saying take the premise again.
Okay.
Do a locked door mystery that hinges on the fact that these people maintain
secret
identities. Because this is very literally something that Marvel could not do. Because Marvel, with their movies, aren't doing secret identities.
Right.
Spider-Man kind of has one, but they, at the end of Homecoming, the person that it is most important that he keep it from finds out, so that's even half neutered. Even characters like Ant-Man, maybe he's not known to the public, but all the other superheroes know who he is. They're not doing secret identities in the MCU. They are doing them more, at least, so far, with the DC movies, and if they continue to lean into that and embrace that element of superheroes that Marvel just isn't doing, it allows you to do a mystery story based on the fact that these people are living these double lives. Some of them know who each other are, some of them don't. Who knows everything, and like, who would have the information necessary to pull off this murder that happened? Now, scrap the specifics.
Sure.
All the specifics. Scrap the motivation, the backstory, all of that. But start with that kernel of a locked door mystery with superheroes, where the fact that not all of
The
them
loved one of one of these characters is murdered.
not all, and that not all of them know who each of them are, is a big factor in how this plays out and the level of trust they have in each other in trying to figure it out.
Okay, so I think that's brilliant. I think the problem with it is the DC cinematic universe is not big enough yet in order to do this. I think we need, honestly, a Marvel level of characters in order for us to have a story sufficiently large enough to carry that. That would be my argument. And
I would
we have
say-
like, what, 5?
Well, see, here's the I would say depending on how many characters they seed with the Batman movie,
Yep.
that might give us enough. Now, it is dependent on a movie that hasn't been made yet, I will grant, but I would imagine for how much other Bat-related stuff they've already said they want to do, for how much stuff they're at least going to seed, or at least indicate this character does exist in this universe, I think after 1, 2 at the most Batman-related movies will have enough to do this.
Like, with that explanation that it's just sort of the stripped down bare bones idea of identity crisis without any of the very divisive and controversial elements of the story as it was conveyed, I do like that idea. I'm sort of with Paul that I do think you need a pretty big cast. This is one of those things, though, where I wonder if the general public doesn't get enough credit or gets too much, because I'm always wondering, like, how do all of these characters need their own origin stories? Do we need to give all these
fair.
people before we put them together? Couldn't you just create a new movie and say, this is the Justice League, it's the Flash, it's Aquaman, Green Lantern, all like elongated name, like people who we haven't seen before? Is that really going to throw people off? It's like, I haven't seen the Green Lantern movie or the Elongated Man movie, so I don't know who that is. It's like, but because I heard that complaint about the Justice League movie, but I don't know if it was just a fault in that movie.
I think it was a fault in that movie, because did we get an origin story for every member of the Guardians of the Galaxy?
No,
We leapt directly into the team movie.
Right.
So I think you could probably get away with, as long as you've got a league with 7 or 8 people or something like that, and you establish. I mean, I think the victim. I think it's got to be.
Well, can I float a controversial choice? But this would be completely predicated on, again, changing the motivations for the reason this person gets killed. But if you want to plant a flag in this, Lois Lane.
That was my first thought. I thought instead of doing Sue Dibney the elongated, because nobody likes him, or nobody knows them enough. Sorry, nobody knows them enough. He doesn't have the families. So I was thinking Lois Lane or Iris West. Because at least with the Flash TV show, a lot of people have heard that name. They kind of know. And you just say the Flash has a wife or a girlfriend or something. Fiance. She was also murdered in the comics a long time ago, but that's okay. She got better.
Like you do. It's comics.
But my one reluctance with actually killing Lois Lane is I do think there's a degree in which that breaks Superman. And that fundamentally alters who he is. And I would look at...
They've already broken him anyways.
But I would look at a game like Injustice or something like that in the comics related to that, where the instigating incident is a major bomb in Metropolis and Lois Lane kills, and it turns Superman into this fascist, horrible monster, and it's like...
Well, I would say at this point, that's so established that going the opposite way would be a really good way to undercut that. So what if wanting to honor her memory becomes a thing that tethers him even stronger than her actual presence did?
Maybe it could work.
All right. So, Paul, you had that gleam in your eye that scares the crap out of me. I know you got at least one more.
Got a couple. All right, so...
if you've got a couple, maybe we burn through them.
Okay, so...
Lightning around.
Yeah.
All right, so these aren't film, it's TV. Is that okay?
Okay, then yes, that's fine, but we're gonna rapid fire them. Then.
Okay, quick. All right, so I don't know why this hasn't been done yet, but I would propose Batgirl as a television series, and what I would do is I would have it be Barbara Gordon. I would not have her go through the wheelchair thing. I would just have her sort of emerge into this role, like watching what her dad's doing, seeing Batman out doing his job and being inspired by it. Deciding to go out crazily to fight crime on her own, but with some background training and whatnot. I would age up or down, depending on which property you're talking about, Selina Kyle. So either from Gotham up, and from the comic books down, and sorry, Batman, I know you're proposing to her, but anyway.
Is he now? Oh,
yeah,
God.
he is in the comics. And so what I would do is I would make it kind of like a buddy sort of show with Selina Kyle and Barbara, where
The cat and the bat.
yeah, and they could be friends. They could hang out. And there are lots of different ways you could take it. They could not know about each other. They could know about each other. I think it's more fun if they do know. And that instead of her being Batman's foil, she's kind of Batgirl's foil. But that there's this, like, you don't have to have the sexual tension between them, or you can if that's the direction you want to go. But I think that those two characters would play really nicely together on a show, and I think it could be fun and light. So, Batgirl.
I think that lends itself to a weekly show as well, because I think Batgirl tends to lean more into the detective aspects that have become more and more vestigial to Batman over time. And if you're doing detective hunting stories, that works on a weekly schedule, because that's why that aspect of Batman doesn't make the movies, because they want the big action set pieces, and his detective angle doesn't work for that. Works for Batgirl, works weekly show. What else you got?
Skeets and Booster. And so now listen, Booster Gold is probably one of the most...
Before you downvote this episode,
if you're even still here,
look at the entirety of what we have. So Booster Gold and his robot Skeets.
No, that's not what I said. Skeets and Booster. And so basically the premise of the show would be that... sort of think of it like Inspector Gadget. And so it would be kind of a comedy where Booster is a complete disaster, and it's really Skeets who has to sort of pull his butt out of whatever problems.
So Skeets is brains and Penny rolled into one character.
Yes, and he's kind of like, Skeets is actually a legitimate hero, and is kind of saving the day from Booster, who's out there trying to save, but he's kind of screw up and he's messing things up, and everything in Booster's life.
And he
is a
also
mess.
thinks he's doing it right.
Oh, absolutely. He's going headlong into everything, and and he's got his branding sort of stuff and like his whole corporate identity that he has associated with him, and Skeets is basically behind him with the dustpan, kind of like pulling the strings, moving the stuff, calling the people, fixing. It's actually Jeeves and Wooster would actually be another good comparison.
Paul, I don't know what I hate more, the fact that you come up with these ideas, but the fact that you make me kind of want to see it happen.
So Skeets and Booster.
Okay, last thing.
Try and pull it back from that. Good luck.
I mentioned a little bit ago that I do think Warner Brothers is nervous about the branding of Justice League.
Yeah.
And they need something else. I think what they can do, because the audience, we've shown that we like seeing our heroes work together, and we like seeing these team-ups and everything like that. But instead of throwing 5 or 6 people together, look at what Thor Ragnarok did. You get the same kind of energy and the same by just seeing 2 working together. Well, DC Comics has a property that is known for team-ups. The Brave and the Bold. And historically it was a Batman thing, but not always, but you can basically just do it as... that is their new brand of putting 2 of their established heroes, or 1 established and 1 brand new, together. And you throw them together on just an adventure that you kind of establish. So you can have a Superman and Wonder Woman team-up movie this way. That doesn't have to be Man of Steel 2 or Wonder Woman 2 or something like that. It's the Brave and the Bold, Superman and Wonder Woman. The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Plastic Man. The Brave and the Bold, The Flash and Booster Gold. You introduce Booster Gold that way or something like that. Or Batman and Booster Gold. He has to put up with this nonsense and realize that, no, that little robot thing is actually... but you can do like weird things. You could do like the Flash and Etrigan the Demon. You could do Green Lantern and Hawkman, Wonder Woman and Dr. Fate. Like, this could just be a thing where you throw in characters that you haven't seen together and everything. And it just be the team up thing, because you get the excitement of bringing 2 characters. Maybe they're foils for each other. Maybe they're not necessarily the 2 that you would automatically put together. And you see them working together, so you get fandoms from both properties. You might get people who are like, I am not going to watch another Superman movie. You know, Man of Steel was terrible, something like that. But I loved Wonder Woman. Oh. There's a new movie that's going to have this Wonder Woman and that. Okay, I'll go, just because I really loved Wonder Woman that much. And that's how you bring somebody who has no intention of seeing another Superman movie to see a good Superman movie. So.
I like that. I like that a lot. And
So it's kind of like where Pitbull and Flo Rida will do a song together, and you can use.
all right, we're gonna wrap it up right there.
Yeah,
So,
just undercut everything I said, mashups.
So, guys, thanks so much for showing up. These guys do their own stuff. There's going to be links for all this down below. He writes comics. They do a webcomic together. He does podcasts. I have a Twitter and an email and a Patreon. Links for all this crap is down below. So, thanks so much for joining me, guys. It has been too long. This was fun-ish.
See you in 6 months.
Thanks for trying, Paul. So, until next time, this council is adjourned.
Lobo!